Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Nancy Beck Young, and I'm the director of the Center for Public History. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our panel discussion today entitled officially Offsides, Houston High School Football Under Segregation. At the Center for Public History, our mission is to ignite an understanding of our diverse pasts by collaborating with and training historically minded students, practitioners, and the public through community-driven programming and scholarship. Since 1984, we have created collaborative research projects with university and community partners to generate research that is local and global. As public historians, we are committed to doing history for and with the communities of which we are a part. We do this in three ways. First, we train graduate and undergraduate students in public history methods, values, and ethics, and prepare them for careers in the public humanities. Second, through public-facing projects like Houston History Magazine, scholars, students, and community members work together to document our rich community histories. And third, through public programming under the CPH lecture series, what we're doing this afternoon, we strive to make history matter in Houston by sponsoring discussions like this one, lectures, workshops, seminars, and film screenings. So thank you very much for coming for what promises to be an excellent panel. I'll now introduce the Dean of Class, Dr. Daniel O'Connor, who makes everything possible through his generous support of our work. Dan.
Thank you, Nancy. Center for Public History has the word public in it, and I love these events because we not only see faculty, staff, and students from the University of Houston, we see members of the public participating in the audience as well as on our panels. And the work cannot be done without the public. I'm a native Houstonian. I tell people that all the time. I've spent most of my life here. I've been on and off this campus since the early 80s. Saw the original Phi Slamma Jamma play back in the day. Okay. Yeah, so, which tells you a little bit about how old I am. I was like 2. No, I was in middle school. My best friend his father was a professor here. Anyway, but that's something I really, really love about Center for Public History and the magazine Houston History is that it's about Houston. And Houston is a very fast growing and dynamic place, and it has been for decades. And oftentimes we don't stop to tell the story. And that story sometimes gets lost. And so I'm very appreciative when we can touch base with members of the community to remember parts of the stories we may have forgotten, because otherwise they'll be gone forever. And tonight, I think, today is a great example of that. So I thank the panel for joining us here, and I look forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie Harwell. I'm the editor of the Houston History Magazine. I also teach Houston History in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Elwyn Lee, who is the UH Vice President for Neighborhood and Strategic Initiatives. Dr. Lee grew up in the 3rd Ward, so he's very familiar with this football game that we're talking about, the Turkey Day Classic. And he also played a pivotal role in getting the historical marker that we have here on our campus to commemorate the game. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Debbie, for that kind introduction. I want to thank Debbie and her staff, not just for what they're doing today, but what they've been doing for years for highlighting what's been going on in the neighborhood. There's probably more information about particularly the 3rd Ward and its history through her program than anywhere else. And it's really fabulous. I encourage you to look into that. And I have to tell you, I'm trying to honor both schools because there wouldn't be a Turkey Day Classic without the 2 schools and the 2 communities. I'm wearing this tie. I had to dig deep in my closet to wear a tie that would represent Wheatland. But I want you to know I got some crimson red. And
That's right.
this is
That's right.
supposed to be, you know, as close as gold as I have. And underneath this, I have a Jack Yates t-shirt.
That's right.
So you should know that. I certainly have a passion for this topic. I attended Jack Yates, but back in those days, you know, you attended it before you attended it because your brothers and your sisters attended it, and you started going to Jack Yates events from an early age and participating. So it's not just a passion, it's been an obsession since I was a child. I'm gonna take less than 5 minutes to answer 2 questions. The questions are, the first one is, why is the Turkey Day Classic important to the 3rd and 5th Ward? And the answer is simple: joy and pride. Now, to put it in context, 1946 was before Brown versus Education, which allegedly was going to integrate things in all deliberate speed. It was actually before the civil rights movement started in Houston, which started on March 4th, 1960. So you can have an example of the constraints that might be on the 2 communities. But people in the community, though they were constrained, they relied on each other, built institutions within those communities, and were strong. The Turkey Day Classic was special because it was ours. Even though we didn't own it, we felt that the stadium was ours and the ground within it was ours. And the excellence on display was ours as well, and that's what led to the pride. The joy. The joy, well, for those of you who weren't there, let me just explain that. The Turkey Day Classic was not just a game. That's what you need to know. Everybody will tell you that it was an experience. And it's not just the experience of the game. The game was kind of the culmination of the experience, but it was not just game. The competition was not just about the football players. The bands competed, the majorettes competed, the cheerleaders competed, the floats were competing it, the halftime shows were extravaganzas, and each year, each school tried to do, the other school and the community tried to do that as well. And most of all, the fashion. For those of you, people told me they dressed up better for the Turkey Day Classic than for Easter. I was talking to someone about this event just this week and just telling her about it, and she had begun to read the book that Thurman wrote. She said, brought tears to her eyes. And I read so many stories about that. When we unveiled the marker, there were people in walkers and wheelchairs, and it just brought back so many memories for them. The experience intensified during the week of the game, but know that people prepared for the game all year long, just like the Super Bowl. There was joy in the preparation, and of course, even more joy once the day came. The second question, why was it important to have a historical marker? Now, this is my co-collaborator in getting the marker. She'll tell you her motivations, and I'll tell you mine. I kind of had to do the political work inside, and there is political work and red tape with respect to a university, as the dean knows, and anybody else here in administration. But I have to, let me just say, thank the chancellor, because she had to give permission for that marker to be put on that site. You should know that it is the only historical marker at the University of Houston. So why a marker? Why is it important? First, it's have a marker so that the history will not be forgotten. There'll be something to let you know that this great experience took place on that site, because the stadium has been torn down, the stadium that was built in 1958. Second, to inform those who never heard about it of the Turkey Day Classic, and also inspire people to learn about the history, not just of the experience in the Classic, about the people who put it on and the communities that were responsible for it. The third thing is to have the marker as a cultural asset added to the other assets in this area, to make this area a destination area. Somewhere like Harlem might be in New York. In this general area, there are a lot of historical and cultural things, too numerous to name them all, but we have the El Dorado Club, we have Project Row Houses. This is known as the area where George Floyd grew up. I could go on, there are numerous people, and events of great significance. And you put all these things together, this is a place where hopefully institutions and organizations will want to come when they do conferences and take tours of the history and learn about it. And also learn about the University of Houston, because University of Houston is part of this geographic area and is responsible for so many good things, like integrating football in the Southwest. There's some great stories about what the University of Houston has done, and we should take pride in that. The fourth reason is having the marker has actually led to some healing, to some emotional trauma caused by the misinformation and allegation that UH acquired that sacred ground in that stadium by chicanery. It's not the truth. They bought the land when HISD kind of put it up for sale. And so that's the true story. In the aftermath of the unveiling, there was a UH football game, and one of your panelists, Reverend Donald Dixon, and I, and Miss Minnie Roy, Miss Wheatley of 1947, appeared at halftime, and a video was shown. And as we were walking out, many people said they never heard about it, and they were so happy to hear about it. I've even seen people walk by the marker and say the same thing. About a couple of weeks from that, HISD, they decided that they were excited about it, that the group that organized for the marker should put on the halftime. They extended the time. The two bands practiced together so they could play together at that halftime at that game. There was a wonderful video so the current students playing the game and people in the crowd could learn about the Turkey Day Classic and its history. Dozens of alumni from both schools were there. And they even used a coin, a memorial coin that we crafted at great length, because let me tell you, these people were competitive. It took a long time to flip the coin at the beginning of the game. So again, it's my honor and privilege to be able to make these remarks, and thank you for inviting me. I look forward to hearing this distinguished panelist. I'm gonna pass this coin on to Dr. Fullerton, because he may be the only one who doesn't have one.
That's right.
And hope you'll enjoy that. And I'll take my seat. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to introduce our panelists and then give a little bit of little more historical background on the game, and then we'll really get rolling. So I'm going to start with Deborah Blacklock Sloan. She's a graduate of Wheatley, class of 1974. It's on the back of her T-shirt. She's a former cheerleader, a genealogist, and a professional historian. Her mother's a 1955 alumni of Wheatley. She's also a member of the Harris County Historical Commission, which we serve on together. And Deborah also played a really crucial role in getting the historical marker here on campus, as Dr. Lee indicated. Reverend Donald Mantan Dixon graduated from Yates in 1958, where he played football and ran track. In fact, he was on the state championship team for track. He's a graduate of TSU. He became HISD's first Black coach at a predominantly white school. And later he was an assistant principal and then the director at Barnett Stadium. And he's also the first person I ever interviewed for an oral history when I came to the University of Houston. Dr. Thurman Robbins, and this is his painting here, graduated from Yates in 1958. He was a member of the swim team and the band, played trombone, I think, right?
All right.
He spent 40 years as an educator in HISD and at TSU, and he's the author of 4 books, including Requiem for a Classic, Thanksgiving Turkey Day Classic, which is the definitive history of this football game. And then Dr. Les Fullerton, down there, graduated from Milby High School in 1959. As a quarterback, he distinctly remembers sharing his number 16 uniform with a Black student from Booker T. Washington. So the Booker T. Washington student wore it on Thursday night, which is when the Black students played, and because they had the same colors as Milby, blue and gold, Dr. Fullerton wore that uniform on Friday nights at his football games. And he also he's wanted to meet that person, but has never had that privilege. He is also a retired dental surgeon. So don't run away, retired was the operative word there. And he loves history. So all of these people have become my friends over the years working with them in the community, and I'm really super excited to have all of them take part in this panel. Yates and Wheatley have played since the schools opened in 1926 and 27 respectively. They were part of what was then the Prairie View Interscholastic League, which was for Black schools, and it was just like the UIL for the white schools. But after desegregation occurred in public schools, then those two leagues merged and became just the UIL. Before that, however, from the 1940s to the 1960s, Yates and Wheatley became the regular Thanksgiving Day game. And they played, as Dr. Lee indicated, over here at what was then Houston Public High School Stadium. And that later became Jefferson and Robertson Stadium here for U of H. I want you to think about this. They drew as many as 20 to 40,000 fans there to go to these games. That's just incredible for a high school game. There are a lot of colleges that don't draw that many fans, and it was right here on our campus. So in 1964, when the two leagues merged, that brought an end to the Turkey Day Classic. And though Yates and Wheatley would still play, it didn't carry the same sort of community rivalry that it had in those in its heyday. So that gives you a little historical perspective there. So we're going to start with our questions. And I want to begin with a question that's for everyone, actually. And that's actually to please tell us what you remember about high school football when you were a student. And especially for those of you who went to Yates and Wheatley, how you prepared on the day of the Turkey Day Classic leading up to that. So I'll let y'all start in whatever order you want to go.
Let me go first. And I'm glad to see another Yates football player in the room today in the personality of James Buster Patterson. Amen. All right. To tell you, to give you an idea of actually what preparation was made for that game by our head football coach, who was Coach Andrew Pat Patterson. Because of the numerous crowd in that stadium, Coach Patterson would have the band to come out at the beginning of the week of that game. We practiced Monday, Tuesday. The game was usually on what? Thursday. On Thursday. But he would start with the band coming out to our practices, and we practiced at that particular time at the Emancipation Park, which was on Dowling and Elgin. some of y'all may remember the El Dorado Ballroom. And they would come to our practice after school, and they would play during the time of our practicing, where we went in the huddle. And as soon as we went in the huddle, y'all know what a huddle is? All right. So a huddle is a place where we go in order to find out what's going to be done next. And the band would actually start playing as soon as we went in the huddle, which made it almost unbearable to hear as it is on Thanksgiving. So we became accustomed, and we did this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We did this every day of that week until game time, so that on Thanksgiving Day, we didn't have to worry about listening for a signal. We went, the play started on a silent count. And we never received a penalty of being offside or in motion or anything like that, because we became accustomed to moving on a silent count. In other words, when we went in the huddle and the play was called, and when we came out of the huddle and got in position, we would all count to three and to ourselves. And when we would get to three, the ball was snapped and we all went. We never got an offside, in motion, anything like that. And what I'm saying is that Coach Patterson was just that kind. He was a smart man from Chicago. Coach Patterson also was an all-star in the black baseball league. So that's kind of one of the things that one of the areas of concern that happened as we prepared for the biggest game in the nation. We were so excited about the game until we talked about the game before the game, we talked about the game after the game, and I'm 85 years old and we still talking about the game. And that's just how much it meant to us. All right.
So by the time I got to Wheatley in 1971, the Turkey Day Classic had ended, but we still had the same mentality. It was still Jack Yates, it didn't matter. So we would have a breakfast, we'd have a parade, we'd have a pep rally, but it was so exciting. And then as a young girl, my mother would bring me to the games, and I didn't know what was going on. I just saw all this purple and white and a little bit of red and gold on the other side, but but just kidding. We have this healthy competition with Jack Yates. We still have it, you know. But I knew something exciting was happening. I didn't know what. But all these people, and then the halftime, it's just undescribable, very exciting. And so my focus was the cheerleaders. I went down there and I said, I want to be one of those. And I became one. But you guys, we can't even put it into words how exciting those times were.
Thank you, Debbie.
I don't really know where to begin or how to begin. But I grew up in the CUNY homes. The first 7 years, we lived in the CUNY homes. And as a young boy, on Thanksgiving Day, 5, 6 years old, I was playing outside. And you know where the CUNY home is in proximity to the stadium. It's not that far. And I'm outside playing in the sandbox with my toys, and I hear this noise. Look around, so what is that? And that went on for several minutes or even hours. And I went inside. I asked my mom, I said, what was all that noise? She said, oh, that's a football game over at the stadium. Yates and Wheatley's playing that game. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have any idea what football was. But one of the stars of the games during that time was a guy named Raymond Daniels. He was a quarterback at Yates. And believe it or not, that Raymond Daniels was my swim coach when I attended Jack Yates High School. But the day of the game, and growing up as the day of the game, we would get up early. My father would drive us from South Union to Third Ward because there was a parade. There was a Turkey Day parade. And the parade began on the corner of Gray and Dowling at that time and wound down through the Third Ward community all the way down to Elgin Street and then ended at the school. My sister, who's here today, my twin sister at that, she was in the Ryan Cadets and I was in the band. So my father took us to the parade that morning. After the parade was over, we had to hustle home, get our uniforms on so we could meet at the stadium because the game started at 2:00. And everybody was so excited. We couldn't wait. And each year it was the same thing. Each and every year, from the time that I was in the 8th grade through the 12th grade, the script never changed. It was the same.
All right, thank you. A lot of you'd be looking here at this panel and wondering, what is that guy doing here? And I always said, if you'll snap me the ball, I'll try to do the best I can. But I've had a great experience by being honestly on the outside and more recently finding out about the history. You've got these great teachers here, but you also need students. And I'm consider myself the #1 student. We're working today. There's so much here in the books. I read the books. And my introduction to really black football was I went down to the Bryan Museum down in Galveston and met some people I see here tonight. And it was hard to find a parking place. Finally, there were 2 spots left, and I pulled into one. And the next opening right next to my car was an opening, and the guy pulled in next to me. And he got out, and I said, why are you here? I said, I'm here to hear Michael Hurd talk about his book, Thursday Night Lights. And he said, well, I'm Michael Hurd. So that's almost a story of my life, is how I get to meet the neatest people in the world who've done meaningful things. So I learned there, and I saw the exhibit that's sitting in this chair at this panel. I'd only feel better if Robert Brown were here, Coach Robert Brown, president of the Prairie View Interscholastic League Coaches Association. I think I'm an honorary member of that. I'm not recognized, but the luncheon they have each year, they fill up a room with several thousand people.
Right.
It is
That's
most
right.
interesting to go to. It's kind of like that Turkey Day Classic. When I played football at Milby High School, and everybody really should be proud of their high school. I'm proud of the East End of Houston. I was a park boy. I grew up in Pecan Park. And thinking about the wards and the parks really adds meaning certainly to my life. So I've read the books. I've met Thurman and now Reverend Dixon and Deborah. I've heard her speak a couple of times. So she can't get rid of me now. I'll show up. But in the end, and I'm going to say this at the beginning, I want people to know about an exhibit, a museum that should recognize, if I said black sports, but women are getting so active today and they are great athletes. But it goes back, and it just my memory tells me, you know, the first book I ever read in the summer came from my church, that the superintendent of our Sunday schools gave me a book, and in that book was Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver, two amazing men. And then later on to have the same colors as Booker T. Washington, and it has been my goal to meet number 16 from Booker T. Washington, because we did wear the same uniform. We could never play each other because we wore the same uniform. Now that's how lucky I am. I'd never want to play them, very frankly, but it is still tonight, and I think the U of H, the history department, and all they do here to bring us together and to give recognition. We still have a lot of work to do, and I'll do my part in supporting getting the recognition. And again, make my night. Give me a break. This is again how lucky I am. I just have to be good enough to just say thank you very much.
So Thurman, my first individual question is for you. You were on the swim team we talked about in the band, but you've come to be the expert on the Turkey Day Classic football game. So what for you are some of the most important takeaways we want them to know about the game?
Well, I think Elvin, to some degree, summarized exactly what this game was about. I want to share with you just a paragraph that is in the book that I've written about the Turkey Day Classic game. The Yates versus Wheatley Thanksgiving Day Classic was an event which grew to glorious heights during the period of segregation. The Classic was a social as well as an athletic contest which engulfed the entire Houston Black community. It was a celebration, a significant, prideful happening created and nourished not only by the schools and alumni, but by the majority of the Houston Black community and citizens during this time, the height of segregation. It was well attended, to say the least. Believe it or not, newspaper accounts described it as the largest attended schoolboy game in America. That is something else. And so it was a joy writing the book. Having experienced the Turkey Day game from the time that I was about 9 or 10 years old, and all the way through elementary school and high school, I had such a joy of participating in that event, not as a player on the football team, but as a band member. And I can really say that it was just a joy. It was something that we looked forward to. It was the highlight of the experiences that we had each and every school year. The game itself that originated, that became just the Yates-Wheatley game, in the beginning when we had the three black high schools, Booker T. Washington, Phyllis Wheatley, and Jack Yates High School, they rotated playing the game on Thanksgiving. 1 year it would be Wheatley and Washington on Thanksgiving, Yates and Wheatley on Thanksgiving, and so forth. But each time Yates and Wheatley played on Thanksgiving, the crowds grew larger and larger and larger. So in 1942, I think it was 1942, HISD decided that they were going to make the game a permanent game for just Yates and Wheatley on Thanksgiving. But originally, the three schools played only on holidays, on Thanksgiving, on Armistice Day, and on Christmas Day. Those were the 3 days that the black high schools played. And but the Turkey Day game became it just became such an event that everybody wanted to go to that game. Everybody.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Reverend Dixon, would you hold your right hand up for everything? Right hand. I think it's on your right hand.
Now, what?
Over here. Hold your hand. That hand
Oh,
up.
this hand.
Hold that hand up. You still wear your ring for the Turkey Day Classic.
Yes.
And I'm curious to know, what does that ring represent to you? That here it is, almost 8 decades later, that you still wear that ring every single day.
Debbie, I tell you, there are some things in life you never forget. There are some things that you were a part of in your life that was so positive and it meant so much to you that whatever you can find, whatever ornament you can find to keep in your present reminds you of those days that meant so much to you. I was the smallest football player other than Clarence Steele, who played at Wheatley. We were the two small. I was 5'6", and I weighed 125 pounds, but could run like a deer and cut on a dime and give you 9 cents change. And I think, and I'm serious about this, I think that a lot of the folk in the stand came to see me play because of my size and because of my agility and that kind of thing. But so many times we like to be reminded of those days when we were really at our best. And I'm at my best right now because I've been pastoring now for 28 years. And I've known from the time that I was in the 9th grade that I would have to do what I'm doing now. But for so many months and so many years, I fought the reality of it until, Debbie, I finally couldn't run anymore. So I came to Jesus just as I was, weary and wounded and sad. But I found in him a resting place, and he has made me glad. I've been pastoring the Greater New Hope Missionary Baptist Church for the last 28 years, and it's been the joy of my football days were actually, and let me tell you this before, I had the opportunity when I was drafted in the service, and that's another story within itself. And I was sent to Germany, and I had the opportunity to play for the Vico Guardians in Germany. I played in Paris. I played in Berlin. I played all over Europe, and my name is still in the record books there in a game in Germany. I've had some good days and I've had some bad days, but my good days outweigh my bad days, so I ain't gonna complain. But you always remember the days when you could do so much on the football field. Those days, and that's the reason that I wear this ring, because it keeps me reminded of how good the Lord has been to me. Is that all right? Nah, I said.
So, Les, obviously Milby was a predominantly white school. And so I'm wondering what, if any, awareness you had at that time about school segregation. You graduated in '59, which is just a year after Thurman and Reverend Dixon. So y'all are, about at the same in the same cohort.
Yes.
So
Actually, I graduated in January. There was midtermers at the time I went to school, so we graduated in January '59, but actually my last athletic year was 1958, so
Yeah.
I'd stay with Thurman. So we really didn't know, by the way. We rarely got to go places. It was really just staying right in the neighborhood was growing up. So most were Caucasian, and there's very little interaction with the black community at that time. In fact, but it wasn't much. I never had a sense about a difference. I'll just say this again, that 40,000 people I played in front of 40,000 people, but it took me about 10 years. So there may have been 400 people, but there wasn't 4,000. It took a long time to get in front of people. So I got there, but it was the appreciation, and really, I never realized anything about segregation in growing up. It just wasn't a part. I went to Broadway Baptist Church, one of the original churches. I grew up what is called Harrisburg, and I still relate to Harrisburg as opposed to the East End. So there was little of that, but the book I read, again, by the grace of God, to have a book to know about who Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver were was a blessing, and to this day I remember it.
Yeah.
By the way, too, I'm going to see my first Milby halftime show this Friday night. If you play the game, you don't get to see the build-up or the halftime. You miss that as a player. So it's been until I'm 85 to see a halftime performance. So you do give something up while you're in the locker room. When we were in the locker room, we were talking about all the missed plays and tackles you missed, passes you missed. So it wasn't a very positive time. I'd love to have been watching the halftime show, but the epitome that we knew was, again, Yates and Wheatley. We did know about that particular game, and for me, Turkey Day was A&M in Texas. That's the game when televisions came in, we were able to see it. But we all knew about the Yates-Wheatley game. Didn't realize that Washington was in that mix as well for a while. But we never would have done, there was nothing that even compared to that particular game. The word is going by me, but just the spectacle of that game. And I will tell you, use that word joy. That is really the word that's heard over and over again, was the joy at playing together as a team and seeing if I said it was a different brand of football. It was not like we played. They were very creative in the way they played football. And we would have called you a jackrabbit if we had been, because those guys that could do that shifting today, pro football, those guys are shorter, so the linemen can't see them. And my gosh, their reflex, and it's because the nerves that go from your brain to your muscles is shorter in a short person. So the nerve, they didn't have to travel as far, so it's quicker. So God does have a way of using all types of talent that I would have hated to try to tackle you. You'd have run by me, you'd have just laughed. You'd have been, you would have had fun to play me in football.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Deborah, I'm coming to you. now.
Debbie, can I
Deborah.
say this before you get to?
Uh-huh.
I was looking at the picture, and I've been looking at it ever since the book came out. And I want y'all to know that Thurman and I have known each other since before we were born. And I looked at that picture, and I've looked at it, and I've looked at it, and I can't find me nowhere. And I was one of the best players on the field, and I can't find me nowhere on that picture.
Are we talking about this picture?
That picture right there.
Okay.
And so publicly, I want to know what's the deal.
Uh-oh. You got some explaining to do.
The deal is, the picture is a picture taken from a photograph that was photographed in 1964. So that was after you, my man. Much after
Good job, good job,
Way to go.
good job. Good save.
So Deborah, you've dedicated your career to uncovering the history of Black Houstonians and Black Texans. Many of those stories, undertold stories, or totally untold stories. How did you come to that career, and why is it so important for us, and especially right now, not to lose that history and to continue telling those stories?
That's a great question, Debbie. First of all, I am a native Houstonian. I'm a fifth-generation Texan. And because local Black history was not in our textbooks, it was important to me to document that. I've done about 35 historical markers. And so the part B to that would be, it's an educational tool. When we do historical markers for the city and the county, it's to educate people, as Dr. Lee indicated early. So it was very important for me to document that history. I mean, I grew up with it, but if you looked in a book, it wasn't there. And since we're filming, I don't want to be kicked out. I don't want to lose my Blacklock name. My dad did go to Jackie Yates and grew up in a CUNY home, since this is being filmed. But I personally want to thank Dr. Robbins, because when I did the historical marker application, I used his book, and it has so many sticky notes in it, you can't even turn the pages. So I want to thank you for giving me the source material to do the historical marker narrative.
Thank you. So does anyone else want to join in and say something about why you think this is so important?
Let me say this about the book itself. It was a joy, I mean a real joy, writing the book. As I said, I had a lot of personal experiences, but when I went back, documentations from newspaper clippings and so forth and so on, and talking with other individuals from Yates and from Wheatley and Booker T. Washington, this thing just took off. I mean, it really took off. I started with a premise, okay, I'm gonna write this book. But I really didn't know where I was going with that at all. And in fact, to say that I'm gonna write a book, how did it come to you to write a book to begin with about this game? I was in Dallas at a function in Dallas, Texas Black Sports Hall of Fame. And in fact, I was being inducted into that Sports Hall of Fame. And they had a breakfast that morning of. And after the breakfast, it was just a congregation. Several people were gathered together and talking. And it was a white couple that lived close to the campus, University of Houston campus. And for some reason or another, we got to talking. Somebody brought up the Turkey Day Classic. And that white couple said, well, wait a minute. We live near the University of Houston. I've never heard of a Turkey Day Classic. What is that about? It went off in my head. Oh, the story needs to be told.
That's right.
That story needs to be told because many generations, next generations and future generations, the mouth to mouth information in terms of what happened, that's going to pass away. We're going to all pass away. But if you put it down in writing, it's something that will be there forever and ever and ever. And that was the impetus for why I started to writing the book. And as I said, when I started, I just kind of went to the fact about it, I started at U of H library. That's where I got just a ton of information from the library. Then I went to Texas Southern's library, and I went to Rice University's library, and each one was just a blessing. They just had a lot of information, and I just pulled all of that together, and we came up with the book. This is the title of the book, Requiem for a Classic, Turkey Day Classic.
So you have any for sale? Anybody?
Donald says, do I have any for sale? No, I don't really have any for sale, but they are for sale. You could get them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. They are still available.
Okay, so I have one question I want to ask everybody, and then we'll open it up to Q&A from the audience, because I'm sure some of you will have some questions or comments. I'm curious to know what you think has changed and what has stayed the same in high school football since the days of segregation. And is there anything that needs to be fixed or maybe fixed again?
So what I've noticed that is missing is the younger generation doesn't understand the importance of coming to the game. Even though it's over, Yates is still our number one rival, but the students don't get they don't get it about supporting both schools. So that's what I find is missing as well. Again, this is a great educational tool for the young folks, and they have no idea about what they've been missing out on. And I don't know if anything can be fixed, but that would be my number one point, to get to maybe talk more about the Turkey Day Classic to the students who attend Yates and Wheatley.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that most of the wholesome activities that we were engaged in coming up as kids, those values are diminishing. Kids are not so interested now in participating because of the parents in the homes. They don't see the need because they don't have a handle on the outcome of their children. And if there's no support in the house, then kids are running wild. And the activities that Les and Therm and myself and Buster, the activities that always caught our attention, they have dissipated at this time, Debbie. And you don't find. I was director after coaching so many years and being in the assistant principal's office. I became director of Barnett Stadium, and the rosters that we had to have for eligibility purposes, they became more nil than they used to be. So what I'm really saying is that you don't have kids, you don't have the interests of kids now who would like to participate because they are not encouraged by the parents. I'm not talking about all, but I'm talking about, I ain't talking about y'all, but I'm talking about all. And that's some of the problem. Some of the problem that the kids are interested in more activities out of school than they are in school. And that's the problem with the schools now. And I don't want to get into that, but the interest and the interest, first of all, of the parents ain't there, and so they find whatever meets their eye outside of the school, and they end up in trouble. And that's the sad thing that we have going now. Very sad.
Could I just, Thurman is my very good friend. I've met him. And that picture that doesn't have Reverend in the picture, God does have a sense of humor. And in my annual is a big picture of what God and I know was my missing a tackle in our annual Milby Austin game. And God did not show, my number didn't show. So God and I are the only ones know that in my annual that I see forever is a picture of my making a big mistake and actually losing the game. So I'm as grateful as anybody can be about a picture.
I just want to make one other comment, primarily about the game of itself, was halftime activities. And there's one year, a particular halftime activity was just so over the top that when people talk about the Yates-Wheatley Turkey Day game and the halftime activities, the 1958 game, Yates and Wheatley at Jefferson Stadium, halftime activities, and of course, which school would go on the field first and do their performance and present their queen, etc. That year, Yates was the home team. So Wheatley's halftime activities went first. And they did a marvelous job. They had all these beautiful floats and automobiles, and they put on a ceremony that was unreal. And then it was time for the Yates halftime performance and to present their queen. And everybody was looking around and says, well, where is Miss Yates? Where are the Yates people? What's happening here? And believe it or not, they said this little dot in the sky. It's coming around, dot in the sky. Oh, everybody started looking up. Said, what is that? It's a helicopter. And it was circling around the stadium. And not only around the stadium, but it just kept coming closer and closer. And it settled on the center of the football field on the 50-yard line. And who stepped out? Miss Yates and her court. And that was the highlight activity of that 58 game. And that's people are talking about that to this day. Those that witnessed it are still talking about it.
Debbie, we don't talk about it.
So before I go to the Q&A, you received 2 magazines on your chair today. And you may wonder, why did they bring us this magazine on EMS? It's because in the departments in the back, you will find an article about the Turkey Day Classic that was written by 2 of my students. They interviewed a group of people from Yates, and they interviewed a group of people from Wheatley. And I'll just say that there's a quote in there from one of the Wheatley folks, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and he said, when Carolyn Wilkins came in on the helicopter, we just threw in the towel. So that's in that article that you can enjoy. And then the other one is a history of Milby. We're working on histories for the schools that are turning 100 in HISD. So we did Milby. And if you look at the article on football, which is page 28, you will not find the missed tackle, but you will find a picture of Les in the article. So you can maybe find some things in there. In our spring 2026 magazine, we will feature Yates, and then Wheatley has its centennial in 2027, so it'll be coming down the pipe pretty soon. So you can look forward to those coming up in the future. So now I'd like to open it up for anybody who has questions. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. D. Pearson, and I'm so very pleased to be here. I've known Thurman for many years. Dee, thank you for helping us put this on. This is part of my $8 today. I'd like to mention a couple of things. I was pleased when I saw this advertisement, and I ran to invite Pat Patterson, one of your teammates on that team. But I also want to speak for Dr. Jesse Hurst, who's no longer with us, but was one of your athletes. And
My teammate.
Your teammate and one of your
Best friend.
professors at Texas Southern. By the way, we were a little remiss in not mentioning that Thurman Robbins, Dr. Thurman Robbins, is a graduate of the University of Houston.
Yes, he
in
is.
our department, formerly known as the Department of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to
Yes, sir.
ask a question. With 40,000 people showing up at the game, did this notion affect the building of the Astrodome and the Superdome and the other domes in other communities, with the notion that you can actually get 50,000 people to show up at a sporting event? Guys,
One of the assignments that I had as a stadium director was to find playoff sites for playoff games. And the statement that you just made, the idea really determined where I would look for a facility based on the projected number of people who would be there. And we always ended up at Rice Stadium to play our playoff games because they could hold any number of people. It was kind of complicated to get the dome for playoff games because of the number of events that was scheduled for the dome. But the only thing that was going on at Rice was their football. And it was easier for me to get a Rice Stadium than it was a dome. So it just depend on the reality of the crowd. We had what we call football crowds, and then we had what we call spectators. And so that determined where we would go with the game. That makes sense.
so this game, Turkey Day Classic, was actually one of the pieces of information statistically that was verified.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm-
That's right.
I'm pretty sure that Rice Stadium held more people than the Astrodome. In fact, early on when they had a Super Bowl here, it was a Super Bowl here. It was at Rice, not
That's
at
right.
the Dome Stadium.
That's right. I was at the game. Froze to death. I was at the game. I sure was.
Carl, did you? have a
Yeah,
question?
Rice Stadium holds 70,000 plus. I think at that Super Bowl game, and I can't remember the year it was. 74?
That's right.
1974. There were 71,000 fans at Rice Stadium. The Dome Stadium at that time probably didn't hold more than about 56,000. And that's why they played the game at Rice Stadium.
That was for you young people.
Dr. Hearn.
Yes, good. Thank you all for being
That's good
here. I
history.
have one
Good
question.
history.
Who won the most games?
Oh, wow. Really, Dr. Hearn? Really? Really?
You talk about between Yates and Wheaton?
Really?
Are you serious?
Really? Really?
Jack Yates Senior High School won the most games.
I think that question was.
I ain't tripping. I'm telling you the truth.
That was a stage question, but it's okay.
Dr. Lee can tell you that. Am I right, Lee? All right. All right. Well, say it loud.
Who scored the last touchdown and who won that game in the last game?
Good question. Oh.
In what year, Lee?
1966, November, for the last Turkey Day Classic, George Fountain scored a touchdown against the beat Wheatley, 6-3. I was a statistician in the press box.
Who did it say?
George Fountain.
Oh, George Fountain. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Antonio?
First of all, thank you for coming. My name is Antonio. I'm a history major here at U of H. So my main question is, what made the rivalry between Yates and Wheatley so intense that, HIS decided, hey, you know what, you guys are going to play the Turkey Day Classic since 1950.
1942. Nobody wants to answer that?
What did you say? You said
What-
what made the,
Go ahead.
he said what made the game, between Wheatley and Yates so popular.
HISD benefited from the revenues generated by the crowd, by the large attendance. And so you say, well, what do you mean by that? The monies that were collected did not go to Yates or to Wheatley. It went directly to HISD and its athletic programs and so forth. But they supported the game. And believe it or not, I failed to say this, but I did include this in the book. There were quite a few white patrons of the game. And there are newspaper clippings which indicated that they had special reserved seating for whites on the 50-yard line, box seating for 50-yard line for the white patrons. And that was every year. So not only was the black community concerned about the game, but the white community also, several, and especially the white coaches of schools in HISD. Because as Les said, they played a brand of football, razzle-dazzle type of football, open style football. It wasn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It was a lot of razzle-dazzle, throwing the ball down the fields. It was in fact about it, the principal at Yates, Mr. Holland, William Holland, was the second principal at Jack Yates High School. Prior to him becoming the principal, he was the head football coach at Jack Yates. And he, coming from Indiana, he did some studying about football from the Notre Dame, and he brought those concepts to Houston in the high schools. And that's why they had so much razzle-dazzle football at that time. And that was exciting. That's what made the game so exciting. It was passes and flankers and end arounds, and it was just it was an exciting brand of football. And everybody that was in attendance loved to see that.
One of the most exciting things that happened at Jefferson Stadium was Yates was playing I.M. Terrell of Fort Worth, and in I guess the first kickoff of the second quarter, Terrell kicked it off, and they kicked it in the end zone, and I caught the ball in the end zone and ran it for 108 yards for a touchdown. those were the kind of exciting moments that everybody would come to see. But let me tell you this, I still hold that record. Nobody has broken that record since. And the reason is because they don't run it out of the end zone anymore. They down it and get it on the 20. And there was one more statement that I wanted to make, but I forgot it.
So to answer Antonio's question, and Dr. Robinson and Reverend Dixon can correct me, I think the third and the fifth wards have always been competitive. Booker T. Washington was in the Independence Heights neighborhood, but the third and the fifth wards have always been competitive. And some of the stories I heard was if you went to Yates and you dated a girl from Wheatley, you better not wear your jacket in that ward. You know, that kind of thing. So they've always been competitive, you know, because of the wards.
Was there violence in the crowd? Was, looking at, you can't go to dinner. Was there, peace, or was there a lot of, Gaza versus, Israel?
Believe it or not, I don't remember a fight. Not one, not during that game. Not during that game. Now, I attended a lot of football games other than the Turkey Day Classic, and you would have fights in the stands. And I mean, but at the Thanksgiving Day game, no. Everybody was dressed up in their Sunday go best, and people weren't going to muss up their clothes talking about what a fight. Oh, no, that was unheard of. Totally unheard of.
And Debbie, I want to let me thank Dr. Lee. He was such a joy to work with during the marker process, during the planning. We were still competitive during both events, but Dr. Lee was such a joy to work with. And then I would go back and show him the narrative, and he said, no, you need to say this, you need to say that. So he was very integral to the narrative process. And I want to thank you personally, Dr. Lee, for that. That's right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, let me say
That's
thanks
true.
to Dr. Lee also. The impetus that he provided. In fact about it, he came by my house. He said, Thurman, I want to buy several of those books. I said, which books? He said, Turkey Day Classic books that you've written. I said, I want to buy several copies. And on top of that, I want you to autograph each one. And I said, okay. I said, well, Ellen, why are you buying so many of these books? He says, I've got a project that I'm working on, and I want people to know exactly why we doing this project and so forth and so on. And this book tells a real story. It tells it in sequence, and it gives a rich history of what this was all about. So, and I thank him for that. This was before the event even took place, before it was even consumed or was ever even thought of. Elwin had it in his mind what he was going to do. And so I thank him for that. He did a real super job. I think you told me that your chancellor? Of course. Your chancellor.
I also want to thank Dr. Lee. He carried me out to the U of H. Who did they play that night? Sam Houston, and introduced me at halftime of the big game, and introduced me at halftime of that game, and along with the president of U of H, and I appreciate that so much. Miss Wheatley, that's right. That's right. Miss Minnie Roy, that's right. And Ellen was asking me if she was still alive, and she is. Okay.
Regular member of Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church.
Okay, all right, yeah, okay, all right, good.
Okay. we have another question here.
Yeah, I got, y'all family was involved in that with y'all? Got that class?
Families involved?
Y'all family-
That's what it was about, Trey. And that's what it was, a family affair. Thelma and Thurman's Annie, aunt, for a better word, lived next door to me. And when I was leaving home to go to the school to prepare and get dressed to go to the game from the school, when I was leaving home, his aunt was already dressed in her red and yellow, crimson and gold. They lived next door to us, and she was all Buster. You remember Honey Bunch? She was already dressed, and I was going to school to get dressed to play in the game. So it was a family affair, Trey, and that's what it was all about.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually groomed. I mean, you knew you were going to Wheatley. You knew you were going to the games. It was just ingrained, instilled.
Dolores?
I'd like to mention how the people arrived at the game. This was during the time when many people didn't have cars. So the people from Fifth Ward, from Wheatley, had to ride the bus from Fifth Ward to Third Ward. But the bus only came, it stopped up on Enid and Holman. That's where the Dowling bus stopped when it came from Fifth Ward. So imagine these crowds of people walking, that's approximately a mile from here. I've always lived 4 blocks
From the
from the U of H.
That's right.
Down Alabama. And those people would come down Holman or Alabama to get to the game.
That's right.
And it was a parade. Do you hear me? It was a parade and a sea of purple and white and crimson and gold. Not only that, it was a communal affair. Each community had its own pride. Whether you won or lost, you had pride for your community. You didn't let your community down. If you lost this year, you were gonna win next year, whether you won that year or not. That was the goal. But it was just a spectacular. From the time, people left home until the time they returned.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I had talked with Dr. Robbins sometime back and received a book from him years ago. And we talked, and he mentioned, although it may be in a book, although it may not be, but he mentioned to me that there were so many people at the game that they refused to actually give the total attendance because they were afraid the fire marshal would shut it down.
That's right. Right.
It's in the book. One of the reporters, one of the local reporters, I had a conversation with him about the attendance. And of course, each year the newspapers would put the estimated attendance of the game. But he said that the administration, HISD administration, came to them and requested that they not report the exact number because they were in violation of the safety and fire codes at the stadium. People were everywhere. Everywhere. Every seat, They surrounded the football field, 4, 5, 10 people deep on the ground, And then you had thousands of people outside the stadium trying to get in. And that's the way it was every year. And Donald will tell you that when they got ready to leave the dressing room to get to the field, the police had to clear the way for the teams to get on the field. There was so many people, the players couldn't actually get on the field. And the same thing happened at halftime when the bands and the drill squads and the performing groups were going on the field. They had to be clear away for them to get on the field. It was just that many people there.
I know that's true because Dolores and I were in the drill squad, and we were trying to get out to the field, and they got cleared away.
For you too. We're just about out of time, so I want to thank all of our panelists, Deborah, Donald, Thurman, Wes. I really, really appreciate you doing this. It's been a great pleasure. I also want to thank Dean O'Connor and Dr. Lee and Dr. Young, as well as Dr. Jackson, Wes Jackson, who helped put all this together for us, including the last minute move down the hall, and for organizing our panelists' parking and whatnot. So thanks to everybody. Thank you also for the CPH lecture series support so that we can do events like this. That's really important as well. So if you are interested in supporting our programming, we have a couple of different things that you could do. If you are interested in subscribing to the Houston History Magazine, you can visit us at houstonhistorymagazine.org. You can also look at our back issues there. So if you are interested in learning more about what we've written on 3rd Ward or 5th Ward or something like that, you can put that in the search and you would be able to find it. And like I said, you can also subscribe there or give a gift subscription, that sort of thing. If you are interested in donating, then please visit the giving.uh.edu/public history. And that's where you can make a donation to help us continue this sort of programming. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming out today. When the weather was threatening and the room moved and all that, shows you're really dedicated to being here, and we appreciate it. Thank you.